Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Equitable Cities track of Charcha 2021. After a couple of cracking sessions on informal housing and first mile governance, today in the session we will be discussing the role of the citizen as well as civic engagement in improving service delivery in our cities. My name is Tariq Mustafa, and I will be a moderator for the session.
Let me call you back. I'm in a meeting.
The state of public services and quality of life in India cities is poor. Under 37% of sewage water is treated. Nearly 60% of households do not have access to pipe drinking water, and public transportation really caters to less than 10% of the commute used by citizens. There is also a growing body of evidence that suggests that urban poor and vulnerable minorities face a double whammy. Their lack of awareness on entitlements and rights, inability to navigate government institutions, and general lack of trust in the state ensures that they are excluded from most urban services. While stakeholders, most foundations, think tanks, non-profits, have increasingly focused on technocratic reforms to improve the state capacity to deliver services, we have often ignored the important part of building the capacity of the citizens to engage with the state, demand services, and hold the government to account. To discuss this very important area, we have an exciting panel of sector experts joining us. Joining us is Milind Maske. Milind is the director at Praja Foundation, a key organization for transforming urban governance across India, especially through their pioneering work on report cards for ranking elected representatives and on building the capacity of mayors as well as local ward councillors. We have Mr. Abhishek Dutt. Mr. Dutt is a two-time councillor in Andrewganj ward of the South Delhi Municipal Corporation. During his time, he has managed to develop his ward considerably and even being selected as a model ward to achieve complete waste segregation. Welcome, Mr. Dutt. Finally, we have Srinivas Alavali. Srinivas is the head of civic participation at Janagraha Center for Citizenship and Democracy, where he works in empowering citizens and city councils, participatory budgeting, and as well as capacity building of citizens in slums. He also drives Janagraha's pioneering civic tech platform, I Change My City, used by millions of citizens in thousands of cities, including the Swachh Bharat mission. As a group, we will look to investigate the issue of civic participation, both from the angle of the citizen and their capacity to engage with the state, but also the mechanisms that the state provides to take in inputs for public decision making. So let me start with a more fundamental question, right? As is self-evident, right? Most governments, whether it's at the local, state, or even at the central level, like we are struggling to deliver services even at the current level, and many policymakers may even make the claim that, hey, at the end of the day, the binding constraint to delivering improved service delivery is really state capacity, and that's where all our focus should be, just on building the capacity of the state to deliver better services. And in this sort of and there's also a sense that, I mean, it's a citizen engagement is a bit of a pipe dream, right? It's a very challenging task to get people to actually care about the issues that affect them. So my sort of first question to all of you is, can effective citizenship exercised by citizens through political and civic participation really lead to substantive improvements in people's lives and in public service delivery, right? So maybe Srinivas, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Thanks, Tariq, and good to be on this forum. I think there are many citizens that are, deeply engaged with the governance. We have a definition problem. We think that there is a lot of apathy and disengagement and things like that. But my own personal experience is anything but that. The reality is that a very small percentage of people in any part of the world are going to be interested in public affairs, governance, matters beyond their personal self. For obvious reasons, you can think of the Maslow's hierarchy or any number of participation kind of studies that we have seen over the years. So, and the other data point is that the number of young people interested in doing volunteering activities, from painting schools to clearing up trash on the streets to volunteering on Sunday mornings to blog runs to you name it. This is a growth industry. The number of people that are giving their time and energy to causes is growing exponentially. And the way I look at it is the younger generation is joining the senior citizens who are small in number, but they were always committed to civic kind of activism, if you will, in their own way for many years in cities. and that's one way of looking at how this is growing. The other way is that when we say engagement, what is the definition of engagement? There is formal engagement and engagement. When somebody is trying to do things individually by filing a complaint on online forum versus telling somebody at the end of the street saying, hey, my water is not coming, even that is engagement. In fact, our political system is such that the political parties have people or their own decentralized political network literally at every corner of the street. So people interact with this kind of political system. They are the intermediaries between the citizen and the local government. So they are also engaging, but we may not look at it as engaging just because we're not counting the number of complaints or number of calls made and things like that. So I would say engagement is quite high, and especially engagement is high when there is a problem. When there is a steel flyover coming up in Bengaluru, 8,000 people come out to protest against it and force the government to stop the project. And as somebody who's been part of that, I myself was surprised that many thousands of people showed up, and not all of them had the same reasons for coming there. So now, in terms of formal engagement, it's a different story. I think we can get to it a little later in this conversation, but we are severely lacking in that respect. We don't have a formal engagement model for citizens to come and work in partner with the local government in a more sustainable, equitable kind of fashion, and there is a huge gap there.
Got it. Thanks, Srinivas. And Milind, what is your point of view on citizen engagement and the current status around it?
Well, I would largely agree with what Srinivas has said, but the cynic in me kind of comes out when Srinivas actually spoke of the formal part of it. Like, our citizens are probably voicing their concerns on dinner tables or within friend circles, and that's of course a part of engagement. But that is not leading to some kind of a structured process or outcome. One of the data points which we can simply look at is how many people come out for voting. When it comes to the local governments, that percentage drops phenomenally low. If you go to metropolitan and larger cities, it goes further low. If you look at like break the data by socioeconomic kind of profiles, you'll find that people who are up in the hierarchy will there is a tendency to engage less with the government formally. Don't come out for voting in posh areas. The number of complaints which Sina spoke about, we've been part of setting up Mumbai's complaint redressal mechanism way back in 2003. It's a robust system. It's been working for about now almost close to 20 years. But how many complaints come on the system? It's just 80,000 complaints a year. It may be seen to be a huge number when we look at it, but it's just tip of the iceberg. And probably why it's not happening enough is because we don't have a formal process of engaging citizens in planning our cities. We don't have a formal process of engaging, getting citizen feedbacks and creating a mechanism where our governments will be accountable in at least conveying what they have done about that feedback which was given today. Wherever we have seen it as the government has went ahead and created that kind of platform, and maybe we can take a couple of cases. One is the Swachh Bharat Mission. I think it's a classic case. You created a platform, citizens could go and vote for it. There was a campaign created. The data was put out on a public domain. There was a large there's been a significant number of engagement which has happened over there. You could see some kind of progress which has happened over the years. Well, we may not be like 100% Swachh Bharat country, but of course it's gone from probably say 25 to 30%, 25 to 60%, 70%, something like that. So that happened because the government has taken the step to create a formal platform. Another example is which I can probably offer over here is something which happened in Mumbai way back in 2011-12 or 11 to 14 period when the development plan for Mumbai was made. It went back to the drawing board about 3 times. I'm not saying that the final plan which came was it's a great plan, but I think it went back because there was a lot of citizen feedback and suggestions which were given, and this was a process which actually the BNC started. Like, they called for suggestion objections. I think in the third round about 80,000 suggestion objections came. There was a committee set up. The person actually heard each of the suggestion objection. There was a feedback provided. Now that's what is engagement all about. Like and that will only happen when citizens, elected representatives, and a government come together on a platform and discuss issues backed by some kind of process and some kind of.
Great. Thanks, Milind. And Mr. Dutt, maybe I'll come to you at this point. And as someone as an elected representative, how does engaging with citizens beyond just the elections really help you govern better and help citizens deliver better services to citizens? Mr. Dutt, I think you're on mute.
Hi, good evening. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
It's such good to hear experts talking about public participation, because that is what politics is all about. It's about engagement. And I think as a elected representative, when you start delivering, when people call you up, when random people call you up from your constituency, and they realize that you can call up your elected representative and you're heard and they try to help you, then the volumes become big. I remember at a very young age, at 32, when I contested and I was fortunate enough to win my first election, number of calls were very less. But as social media has come up, as people have started calling you up when they see they're being helped, expectations and calls, they both go up. But we've kept it very simple in our area. Our yearly manifesto is purely based upon needs of our local resident. We ask them in advance that you please tell us how do we plan your fund, and we divide it over 3 issues. First is something that is SOS, that needs to be addressed immediately. One is your bigger plan. For example, when you want to plan a proper drainage system, sewage system, school, community center, project that take about 3 to 4 years to come into place. And in between is your day-to-day work. For example, like the gentleman, who started first in our discussion, said people call you for water issues, sewage issues, issues related to local governance. So that's how we engage ourselves. And we let our team people who are a resident give us their list. And that's how we plan using our funds. And it's very interesting. In 2008, Sheila ji started this campaign of Bhagidari. Bhagidari was the first process where the Delhi Chief Minister at that time, Sheila Dikshit ji, realized how to converse with the Resident Welfare Association, how to make them involved and how to make them feel important. And I remember writing a slogan that this work is done from your taxpayers' money. So people start valuing the kind of work that we do in the constituency. If we make a road, we make it once, but the local residents have to ensure that they maintain it for years to come. So I think the more you involve the local residents in decision making, empower them, that is how you can work, and you do exactly what they want you to work. Because I might like something, but if that is not what required by the residents, then doing it makes no sense.
Got it, Mr. Dutt. And what are the challenges that both, let's say, from your side that you face in engaging with citizens, or citizens face in engaging with you? And what are the tactics and approaches that you've used to sort of bring them on board? Is it you sort of referred to the use of social media? So could you throw a bit more light on how you actually go about this?
See, we have a grievance number that anyone who's got an issue can send and share a message immediately on one number that has been looked after. And as a young politician, what helps me a lot is something that cannot be done, I straight away say no to it. I know something which is beyond a league of a municipal councillor, something which is not technically possible to be done, so that people know that you are very straightforward and you tell them exactly what can be done. A lot of time people come to us for issues that cannot be addressed. And one option is that you keep on telling them every day, well, I'll look into it, knowing that you can't do it. And second issue is you be transparent with them. And the problem in Delhi is we have a 3-tier, governments in Delhi. We've got municipal corporation, we've got state government, we've got central government. So that is where we feel a lot of difficulties. For example, Jal Board and electricity in Delhi is with the state government. I represent a constituency where there are a lot of people from the central, from CPWD, from the central government. That comes under the member of parliament. But when we go for election, then we ask them for vote. We don't tell them, you please don't vote for me because I can't do this. We tell them we'll do everything. So whenever someone comes to us with a complaint or with an issue, we make sure that we approach the right officer. We take the local RWA with us, raise the issue, and get it done with the officers. My personal relationship and my personal experience with municipal corporation, Delhi government officers and central government officers have been very good. We've been able to get a lot of work done. But there are certain things where we have no role. For example, if someone comes to us asking for an admission in Kendra Vidyalaya school, I know we can't do it. We have no authority. We have no, special quota as a municipal councillor. So that is where I realize it is good for me to tell them that, sorry, I cannot do it. Then to get them to my office every day, make them wait and give them answers which has no end. So I think as politicians, we need to be transparent. We need to be very straightforward, and we should try and reach out to the last person and help them. At least that effort should be visible.
Great. And Mr. Dutt, just one more sort of a follow-up question. So you seem to have really leveraged, whether it's technology or otherwise, to really understand your citizens and constituents and help them access services. But is this the experience that you've sort of seen with your colleagues in other wards and across Delhi? And have they also? Is this more common, or is this? Do you see yourself as a bit of an outlier?
Tariq, I'll tell you, handling your constituency is very, very, focused upon the way you live and the way you want to work. There's no method, there is no set agenda how you want to reach out to people. For example, I spend every 3 hours non-stop every day in my constituency. Every morning, I will try and cover one booth, meet up with the local residents, take my officers along and cover that area, so that you know the ground reality. Your information system is your main key. You should know what is happening in your constituency. You should know who are the people who will help you in elections, who are the people who will actually help the local residents, and who are the people who become more like hindrance. So you need to manage everyone together, and every politician, every elected representative, or every person has got their own style of working. For me, it has been very simple. Reach out to the maximum people, try and help them. The more you meet people, the more problems come to you, and that gives you a better opportunity to address to them. I'll give you a very small example. Our municipal ward in Delhi was the first ward. I'm a Congress leader of the Congress party in municipal corporation. I'm a Congress party councillor. In Delhi, we have Aam Aadmi Party. In center, we have Bharatiya Janata Party. We were the first ward in Delhi to get 9 crore rupees sanctioned from central government, routed through state government, which was used in the first municipal corporation ward in India, not even in Delhi. This was last year. There's a scheme called Amrut. We got 9 crore rupees from them to create drainage system in our constituency. But when we started moving the file, it took us almost 3 years. I was personally following up with the files. But I knew if your file documentation is right, what you're doing is absolutely desired by your constituency, officers will never say no to you. But yes, when politicians, they get to know something like this is there, they try and stop your work. But as a bureaucracy, as officers of your municipal ward, if they know you want your work to be done, which is for public, they always support you.
Got it. And thank you, Mr. Dutt. And Milind, maybe I'll come next to you, right? And then according to the Praja Urban Governance Index, right, about 15 out of the 21 cities that you surveyed did not have any functional ward sabhas. Only one city had an area sabha, and only one city amongst the 21 really did any active citizen consultation, right? And it seems like what we are seeing from Mr. Dutt is a bit of an outlier, and most cities don't end up engaging actively with citizens. So what is your experience working with elected representatives been like? What are the challenges that they face? One, is there a desire to actively engage with citizens? That is one. And second, if there is that desire, what are the challenges that they face?
Thanks for asking this question, because Tariq, one of the key stakeholders that we tend to neglect in our democracy are our elected representatives. And we don't really think it from their perspective. Abhishek definitely will be smiling because we do work with him, and this is an issue which we hear across the country from different political leaders across political spectrum. The challenge that they face stems from a few reasons. One is that we have a very complex system of governance. Take the case of Delhi, we have multiple agencies working over there. Like Abhishek said, there are 3 governments working over there. Take the case of Mumbai, there are 17 agencies working over there. take a case of a smaller city like maybe Bhubaneswar. Over there also you will find like a 5 or 6 city agencies working, operating, and probably deliver similar kind of services. And that's where the start of the issue happens. Like you don't know whom to approach, you don't know how to kind of navigate through it. Of course, political leaders who are motivated, and they want to give back something, they definitely try to maneuver the way Abhishek has been saying, that they take personal efforts towards that. However, if we have to solve this, we'll have to really make sure that the complexity of our governance system reduces. This can happen if we are able to define roles of each government, define the domains, and everybody kind of respects those domains. Like that's one thing that surely can help us. Elected representatives a lot of time do not have the have resources or access to proper guidance and training and support systems. They do not have offices, they do not have research teams. Now that's another thing. If you're able to provide them, they will be able to actually reflect and raise relevant issues in the house, because ultimately they are people's representatives. They are the ones who have the mandate to raise people's issue over there. But they can do that only if they are able to get access to that information. Like somebody like Abhishek is the way he was explaining. There are many people like him who go to their constituents regularly, use social media for it. However, that is going to be a personal effort. We are not able to, and it can improve a lot if we are able to actually give them a institutional support. So that's the second thing that we can do. And I think civic education largely is something which is missing. Like it's not just a problem of the government or agencies or our political leaders, but it's also a problem largely of the society at large. We have not been exposed to civic ideas. We do not know for what whom to approach there. Like पानी के लिए भी हम लोग एमपी के पास जाते हैं, एमएलए के पास जाते हैं और काउंसिलर के पास जाते हैं. तो पार्षद के पास किसके लिए जाना है, विधायक के पास किसके लिए जाना है, सांसद के पास किसके लिए जाना है, उनके रोल्स क्या है. All that stuff is really important. Like we need to remove the boundary between which artificial boundary which is there between citizens, representative government. It's something like we need to understand it's all of us. It's not we against them. Like that kind of mechanism. It's and something can be which can be done easily if we are able to if we invest ourselves into civic political education of largely. We invest into institutions and make them more stronger and provide resource and support systems to the right kind of people who are working in the system.
Got it. Thanks, Milind. And maybe and Srinivas, just the stats that I was outlining before the question to Milind, right? Like so, I mean, ward sabhas have been established few and far in between across our cities, and it's also something that you touched upon in your opening remarks, right? The fact that formal mechanisms have not been well established, and if we have to ask sort of that basic question on why has it established, why is it not a priority? Is formal mechanism so central to engaging citizens? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there has been more discussion about ward sabhas than the discussion inside the ward sabhas, unfortunately, in the last few years. Right? So it's one of those things that everybody likes to talk about, but nothing actually happens in the real life scenario. And there are a lot of reasons for it. It's a complex problem. And first of all, we try to solve the problem at the wrong level, in my humble opinion. I think we should build a proper tombstone for 74th Amendment and push it in the background so we never bring that back again. If we are discussing decentralization, we cannot be discussing decentralization as central law. There's a fundamental flaw in our approach all of these years. Decentralization only can be done at a decentralized level, which means the state municipal acts. We don't need one big amendment in the constitution. We need 30 amendments in the state municipal acts. That's what we should work on. It is convenient for people in this sector and experts and all of that to try to solve the problem centrally, because you cannot clone yourself to be in so many different states. It's a huge challenge. It's 30 times more challenging than fixing it one problem. But that's not a real solution. So we really need to reset our thinking around how you want to bring about change for the ward committees. Ward committees may not exist, but ward committees do exist in other names. They're called Nagarik Samitis in some place. In Cuttack, they're called Sahi committees. They're also called puja committees. In Guwahati, they are called Nagarik something something. In Bengaluru, we have ward committees. Mangaluru, another port city in Karnataka, now has ward committees, and Mysuru has just announced ward committees a couple of days back. The third city in Karnataka to constitute ward committees. Goa and Panaji and many cities have ward committees with the 5 members in the ward committee, and whatever 20 or so cities have ward committees. In Odisha, there is no elected bodies right now, but there are so many committees. There are slum committees, there are Mission Shakti committees, there are Swachha Sathis, Jal Sathis, and there are all kinds of public participation formally, institutionally happening in urban local bodies. Which brings me to the pet peeve of mine is we need to stop calling them urban local bodies. Like corporate councillor Abhishek was saying earlier, what am I responsible for? And one of the biggest problem that we have is that we just don't accord the importance and respect that the city government requires. And I'm choosing my words carefully and calling it city government. I want Mr. Abhishek to be called as a member of the city government, Council of City Government, not South Delhi Municipal Corporation or municipality and things like that. Somehow we have lost that, a very important part of the third tier of governance has been created like that. And in the initial days of my own activism, when I would go to the BBMP, the Municipal Corporation of Bengaluru, the senior officers or engineers or even councillors would tell me, this is not our thing, we have to discuss with government. What they mean by that is state government, right? They don't even think of themselves as government. That's how bad the situation is, in my opinion. So we really need to change the language, and if we start saying that to begin with, a lot of things will fall in place after that. And this, you cannot have a counselor who is not responsible for water. You cannot have a counselor who cannot solve the problem of garbage or say electricity and things like that. But this is the case for we have 80,000 counselors in our country. It's the biggest political ecosystem that you can ever imagine. If I count the Gram Panchayat members, the numbers will be in 20-30 lakhs. This is the political entry point for anybody joining public service in India. Even better, out of the 80,000 councillors, 40,000 of them are women. That means women in politics, which is absolutely lacking in our society. And we have parliaments and state assemblies, abysmal rates of less than 8-9% of representation from women, which we know what that means in terms of policy making and priorities and budget and all that. We don't need to get into that, but we know that that leadership exists in the local government. But we brush it off, saying, oh, they are not real politicians, they are somebody's representatives, they are getting the ticket because the husband, so on and so forth. But those are all silly excuses, in my opinion. Once you're a counselor, you're a counselor. I don't care how you got there. What I mean is, you constitutionally got elected, your name is on the ballot, you are my counselor. So if we start focusing on empowering them, a lot of good things will come out of that. I noticed that Abhishek didn't refer to ward committees, right? But he has very good engagement with the citizens. But he doesn't necessarily think that this is the kind of forum that is needed. But he's talking about SOS, he's talking about plan. What happens when a good citizen engagement happens? It goes from complaining, and it goes from individual level petitions or signature campaigns to more positive organizing of the community. And so they get into a room with, instead of citizens individually going, they will invite Abhishek into their community and say, sir, these are my 10 things we need in our community. And then he will look at them and say, okay, 1, 3, and 5 I can do, 2 and 4 are out of my scope, and so on and so forth. And eventually they'll come to the plan. But as long as the city council or the corporation doesn't have the mandate to fix those issues, he's always going to come up short, and they are going to get disillusioned. So if we want to see citizens taking even bigger role in the local government, we first need to strengthen the local government. Strengthening the local government equals strengthening the council itself. We watch the parliament sessions. No matter what happens there, we like to watch them, and we like to know how much they're disrupted and so on. Most of the state assemblies are now live. In Bengaluru, BBMP Janagraha has requested and now got a live streaming of the BBMP council. We should start getting the live streaming of the council meeting. That's when the country will know what progressive councillors like Abhishek are saying. What are they talking about? What issues are they raising? In Bengaluru, when we had the council 1 year back, all 198 councillors came together, regardless of breaking all party barriers, BJP, Congress, JDS, and so on. They all voted to ban hoardings in our city. We don't have hoardings in our city. We don't. And it happened only because all of them came together and said, we don't want hoardings. And now the council is out of their term, and next election hasn't happened, which is another point of huge disappointment we should discuss today, Tariq. Many states today don't have elections for local. How can you imagine Rajasthan or West Bengal or any other states not having elections for 6 months, 1 year? You will say democracy is dead. There is this all kinds of headlines will appear in the papers, but this is happening for many cities. Thousands of cities in India today do not have elected political representation, and we move on with life as if everything is all right. It's not all right. It's actually wrong, right? So but that's not an issue. Now, coming back to that, if we empower the council is very important to be empowered, because they have standing committees, they have a mayor. If they are able to make policy or law or bylaw, whatever word works for you, then things start happening. Then you say, okay, BBMP did this, BBMP banned hoardings, right? And BBMP banned plastic. BBMP started charging for parking. These are all the in the scope of the municipal corporation, public toilets, water, all of these things. When BBMP is seen as the municipal council is seen as debating, discussing, and making decisions towards the greater benefit of the public. And of all the elected representatives we have, take the 543 MPs, or 3,800 odd MLAs, all country combined. You take the wisdom of the councillors, it will always reflect the public mind. Why? Because every day 3 hours Mr. Abhishek is on the street, and if other out of the 80,000 councillors, imagine 10,000 of them are doing what he is doing. So that much of intelligence is there, crowd sourcing of issues is there, and that is the knowledge that they have. And because of that, a solution that is ground up, grassroots driven, will come out of that. But they don't have a forum like that. They can't make decisions like that. They have to apply for grants, and this thing really gets me irate. And I'm sorry for using this forum for this, perhaps not a right place for it, but there is always cities are begging for money to come from state government or central government, and treat it as a boon or as some kind of great thing. We got this many crores from the state government or so. Where is the money coming from? It's coming from the same cities. It's going up the chain, and when it comes down, you have to now beg for it. What kind of a logic is this? It's you are the one that is contributing all of these taxes and so on, revenue generating, and every presentation will begin with how the cities are the economic engines of this country. Then how come the cities are always with a begging bowl, that you have to look for drainage systems, sewage systems? You don't have any of these things, and you have to wait for some scheme from some government scheme in central government or state government, and you have to apply for a challenge and so on and so forth. It's completely broken. The public finance system, the state finance commission system is completely broken. When there is no money, there is no respect. If the council has money, the councillors have money. When they have the money, public have a lot more respect on them, because they can get things done. So these are the systemic issues that need to be addressed, and much bigger topics, obviously, but they can be addressed in a different way than the way that how a ward committee is functioning or not. The ward committees will run like a beautiful thing once there is action coming out of the ward committees. There are enough and more public minded, spirited citizens in every ward of this country. Okay, they just need to know that if I put my time and energy and put my thought into it, that will lead to a ward development plan that will get funded and that will get done. And when that gets done, they are the ones that are going to monitor that particular work, and they're going to make sure that the drain works or the footpath works or whatever it is, the infrastructure being built. They feel the pride and ownership of it. So this is the loop that we need to do, and then we will see ward committees truly becoming the fourth tier of governance that it ought to be. I see many positive signs like this in several states, but it needs to happen, more universally.
Great. Thanks, Srinivas. I'll come back to you, but we've got a poll that's running. Nandan, could you just share it on screen? How actively have you participated in your area's local governance initiatives and issues? And maybe Akash, could you show us the answer? No, as the votes are coming, it's interesting, right? I think Srinivas, to your point as well, there is a percentage of citizens that are actively engaging on a regular basis. It's not that it's they're disengaged or disinterested always. So even here, we can sort of say, although maybe about almost 40% are saying that they've never engaged, but it seems like there is about 1/5 of citizens who actually actively engage with the government. And maybe, and just Srinivas, and just staying on your point, and would love to get everyone's views on this. This is the central political economy question of our times, right? Like at the end of the day, I think it's there's enough research, enough experience out there to say, look, as you decentralize more, as the distance between the citizen and the government reduces, you can accountability increases, service delivery improves, etc. But I mean, it seems like a tough nut to crack, right? Like no state government seems to be interested in actually giving up their powers, and because again, like you said, cities are the centers of economic growth. That is where the money is coming from, and that is where power is derived from. So, is there a way out? I mean, as you think of this mission around decentralization, what is it that we can do as citizens to actually, I don't know, force a change, force decentralization? Is there anything that we can do, or do we just wait and hope one day there is an enlightened elected representative that comes and says it's time to decentralize?
Hope is not a plan, as my friend Ashwin keeps saying to me all the time. Yeah, so hope is not a plan. Obviously, it is not going to work. There's got to be a lot more things that need to be done and can be done and will be done. And there is a social media has really democratized information, right? And a lot of people, I would go to sessions with students or even adults and ask them, okay, who is the prime minister? Everybody would answer, who is the chief minister? Everybody would answer, who is the mayor? Now you got like less than 10%, 15% knowing that question. Okay, who makes the budget for the India? Okay, finance minister of India, they take the name. Finance minister of state, who makes the budget for the city? Now, the people that know the name of the mayor also are stumped by this question. They don't even know who makes the budget for the city. And the budget for the city is what makes the everyday life of the city go. There is a standing committee, and each city or state has different laws. There is a chairman of the standing committee that produces the budget, and then the powers are not exactly with the standing committee, so they go into the bureaucracy. And then all of this is a huge mess. So, therefore, we don't have a clarity on what is it that we have to demand for, and that is where this challenge of decentralized demands come from. In Karnataka, we got to demand for something else. In Odisha, we might have to demand something else. In Maharashtra, we have, the BEST, the best bus service, runs as part of the BMC. So public transport kind of comes under the municipal corporation. Are they running, sessions with citizens to know where they want the bus service or not? Are the bus stops now are owned by the same thing that runs the bus service? As opposed to Bengaluru, the bus service is run by somebody else, bus stop is run by somebody else, and somebody else is running advertising on top of the bus stop. It's a complete a local. So we need to create these information campaigns or communication campaigns localized to the different models that we have, and start taking things into, any sort of action will have to be preceded by awareness, as we all know. So what is that awareness? The awareness has to come from the third tier of governance. What are the roles and responsibilities of it? Why is it that they don't want to share power? This is another question that we should ask ourselves. What is it? Because every party, political party or government, what do they want to do? They want to come back to power. They want to do a good job, come back to power. Well, let's leave aside things like the wanting to make money or recovering the investments made during elections. Those are common across all parties. So, unfortunately, they are what they are. Now, they want to come back to power. If we are able to convince these political parties that by doing this kind of work or empowering the city councils, it's going to reflect well on you. Therefore, it's going to politically give you mileage. And you are not only that, you are going to see a good pipeline of grassroots political leaders coming up the ranks in your political system. I want to see Mr. Abhishek grow into the MLA of Delhi and someday sit in the Parliament House and coming from the Parliament. And I must remind the audience today that many of the great Indian political leaders from Patel to Subhash Bose to Chittaranjan Das, to, all of them have started as municipal councillors and mayors. And that's how we are able to, when the governance transferred from the British to us, we actually had a lot of people that could govern. And that experience is gained and gathered from this. When people understand these things, they will go to that. The MLAs and MPs are pretty much jobless. I'm sorry to say this to them that they have nothing to do, nothing much to do. So, what do? They become glorified corporators. They want to poke their finger in every little thing. By doing that, they are delegitimizing or kind of undermining the importance of the councillor in their own way. Thanks to the whip and the breakdown of the legislative parliamentary democracy we have, nobody has a voice to speak out. Everybody in the party has to vote the same way. Parties don't have discussion forums on policy. We have more forums like Charcha and many other things discussing mobility in cities or climate crisis and all. When is the last time you heard any big party having internal debates on climate crisis or mobility and therefore arriving at a policy and then implementing it through their elected representatives? This doesn't happen. They pick the candidate based on some other criteria, which vote bank he can bring into me in, and so on and so forth. And MLAs control these things, and MPs, so that they keep controlling this kind of political ecosystem. And people also have this mistaken, false impression that MLAs report to MPs or corporators report to MLAs. This is absolutely false. The corporators are independent entity. They are part of the city government, and the MLAs are part of the state government. Their job is to make laws for the state, not to walk into every street and start inspecting the drains in the street. They can do that out of goodness of the heart, but that's not their job. So, what is their real job? That's not happening, and we are not questioning them on that. And we continue to encourage them to do what they do for various other reasons. So,
And
a lot of good thing will start coming if we start giving less importance to the state and Lok Sabha legislators in as far as urban issues are concerned, and put them on the mat. What is your opinion on CAA? What is your, why what how are you devolving funds to the municipal councillors,
right.
councils? How are you going to empower mayor? This is the discussion MLA should be having and answering to us.
I'll just
We don't ask them.
Yeah, I'll just interrupt you and I'll come back to you. And Mr.
Sure.
Dutt, and I think at one level, one question I had was, at the end of the day, is there conversations amongst elected representatives that cutting across party lines about the need to devolve more powers to ward councillors and mayors? And is there any interest in amongst the first tier of governance in sort of engaging with at the state level and the central level to get them to devolve more powers? What is the sense in the room in that state?
See, Tariq, the biggest issue that we face is every 2 years there are elections in Delhi. For example, next year we have the municipal corporation elections, followed by the member of parliament election, and then we have the MLA elections again in Delhi. So even if you want to work with the local MLA or the MP, due to political pressures and teams around you, they don't let you work. But at the same time, no one can interfere in your scope of work. For example, like what Mr. Srinivas said, as a municipal corporator in Delhi, or MCD owns the maximum land in Delhi. So any agency, whether it's the state government or the central government, if they have to work with the municipal corporation, there are certain protocols that they have to follow. But the problem is a lot of elected representatives are not aware of the DMC Act. They don't read the powers that they hold and the way they can get the work done. MLAs in Delhi have a trump card budget. Their budget can be used for any and everything in Delhi besides the central government. As a member of parliament, you can't spend money on for example, you can't make roads, you can't make drainage system. It's only to buy an asset. Municipal corporator can only spend money in municipal corporation work. But the land is yours. For example, if Delhi Jal Board has to put a sewage system, as a municipal councillor, I have to make sure that they deposit the road cutting money. They are not illegally cutting the road, so that tomorrow when I have to repair them for my resident, I have the funds. If IGL has to put their pipeline or if Airtel has to work in my constituency, or Jio has to work, the proper procedure has to be followed. But if you are not well read as a politician, if you don't interact with your residents, then obviously these things they come to you more like a surprise that someone had come and dug up my back lane and I don't know who's done it. But if you are hands-on, if you are present over there, then you tell them, yes, Delhi Jal Board has put this sewage pipe. We have the money to restore it, and we'll restore it in the next 2 months. And you plan your year accordingly. See, the biggest thing that I feel, really bad about municipal corporations is that the mayor changes every year. They should have one elected mayor for at least 5 years. Or they should have members. See, what happens is every year if the mayors will change, then they can't plan their vision, because see, bureaucracy thinks very different than elected representative. Politicians think more towards the residents, more towards welfare schemes. Bureaucracy will look at more towards schemes which are which have very limited scope. So if you have a mayor for 5 years, they can plan their 5 years properly, and they can make sure that it reaches the last, all the policies that they have actually gone into the public with are executed. I'll give you a small example. Our municipal ward was shortlisted as a first model ward in Delhi. The bureaucracy had mentioned that it is easier to work in Abhishek's ward because the residents listen to him. So we can do segregation of waste. So the first segregation of waste after New Delhi Municipal Corporation was done in our wards. So what we did further was we engaged local students around our schools. We took them on a summer internship, and these kids went door to door along with Chintan NGO, and they were properly, they were telling the benefits of segregation of waste. We did music competition, we did painting competition, and we used wall art. I'm talking about 4 years back, so that we started educating the people that how segregation of waste can help you. So elected representative, if they are actually wanting to work in their area, they're the best medium to reach out to the public. And when you make your files, when you make your proposal, your officer very clearly knows what does this person want out of this proposal. Is it for the public good, or is it for some vested interest? And your files are moved accordingly. So, but where municipal corporations are concerned, a lot of municipal corporations are very cash rich. For example, BNC, Delhi government. A lot of our funds are received by the Delhi state government. For example, when you buy a property, you give municipal corporation money to the state government. When you pay your electricity bill, you pay taxes to the state government. Now the problem is when the state government is in fight with the municipal corporation for political benefits. Who suffers? A common man suffers. And last point that I want to give is, Sheila ji was the chief minister for almost 12 years when Bharatiya Janata Party had municipal corporation in Delhi. Never ever, and I'm quoting this on your forum, never ever any Safai Karamchari or any municipal corporation person went on strike due to non-payment of salaries. Salaries were not stopped. Work was not stopped. She knew very clearly if she has to come out as a chief minister, she has to make sure that the municipal corporation works, because your direct interaction is with the municipal corporation, whether it is cleaning of streets, whether it is maintaining your parks, whether it is maintaining your markets, everything is with the municipal corporation. And the day they start suffering, your residents will automatically suffer. So she never stopped any payment which was to be done to the municipal corporation. But now we have to go to the court. I myself, as an opposition councillor, went to the Honorable High Court. And my simple question to the Honorable High Court is, what is the money that the municipal corporation was supposed to be getting from the state government? Because I'm not able to do work because my residents are paying their taxes. That money is parked with the Delhi government. Why that money is not reaching the municipal corporation? Then it is the best councillor who gets the maximum funds. The person who's on road every day will make the project, will go to the commissioner, will get the funds. But if you only wake up at the last day, then obviously you will not get any development funds in your area. So that is where we are struggling. All what I propose now is, through your forum, whatever money that is deposited with the state government, which is on behalf of the municipal corporation, should be put into an escrow fund, and that money should be immediately transferred to the municipal corporation, whether it is our share on property, whether it is our share on road tax or on electricity, which is called the Municipal Reform Fund. If that money is kept with the state government, obviously you'll have issues like no pensions being paid, no salaries being given. And who suffers at the end of the day? When there is water logging, your drains are not made, your drains are not desilted. The residents, after paying taxes, they suffer. So this has to stop, and you need mayors, you need people on such posts for at least 5 years, so that they can tell the people that this is what they want as what this is on the basis of which they want people to vote, and you can execute your promises.
Yep. No, thank you, Mr. Dutt, for that your perspective on that. And one other question I had that even Srinivas was also touching upon was the capacity of municipal councillors and elected representatives, right? And you also mentioned about the fact that some of them don't even have not even had the opportunity to even read the law and understand the
Yeah.
powers that they have. And Mr. That and when because you are at some level the customer for potential capacity building courses or any sort of support that non-profits or civil society can provide. And as you think of it, where do elected representatives need support from either non-profit civil society organizations in sort of helping deliver the promises that they were voted in for?
Tariq, I'll give you 5 examples. There were 5 big works in my area which the local government, due to political involvement, was not doing it. Through my residents, I went to the court. I filed the PIL, and the topmost lawyers came on board without even charging me, and we won 4 cases. One was there was an illegal mall which is coming up in Defense Colony. We Honorable High Court of Delhi, we won that. Was stopped in my area. I went to the High Court and we managed to get the standing committee to pass it. This is was issue in the House. Then I went to the Honorable Judgment in favor of sanitation workers. Earlier, all the elected representative had to sign on the pension forms, and that is when pensions were issued. I went to the High Court. I filed a PIL in the High Court, and then we got an order from the High Court that anyone can apply pensions online. You don't need to go to any elected representative's house because they are not giving money from their personal houses. It is taxpayers' money. The court, so these are our residents who support you in the court. They don't charge you anything. When they see you working, they stand with you like a rock. And that is what we appreciate, that you try and win a goodwill among residents when you fight for their cause. Whether I don't give them a story saying it is under the MLA, I cannot do it. I tell them it is under the MLA. We make sure that we raise the voice, and the MLA listens, and the Delhi Jail Board works. And trust me, it does. Just saying no to them, not trying to help them, I think makes no sense. For me, it is more of an excuse that I can't do. Then if I can't do, then I don't need to be there. Some other Abhishek should come and sit there then.
Tariq, if I may come in this,
Of course.
this is a topic of great interest to Janagraha, and we have been working on it for many years, and the large ecosystem of counselors that we have. You think about it this for a second. When you joined your employer, or Milind or myself or Abhishek, I was in the software industry for 20 years before coming into Janagra last year. Or you think of the lakhs and lakhs of young boys and girls that joined the Infosys and TCS and Wipro and so on and so forth. What happens when they come in there? They are put through a six months to 1 year intensive sort of training or orientation, onboarding, whatever fancy names you want to call it. When these 80,000 counselors come in, nothing of that sort happens. While we have many Abhisheks, we have many more counselors that are absolutely clueless, like Mr. Abhishek was just recounting. They're just not aware. A counselor, a two-term counselor, a leader in the council for a major political party, told me that it took me 2 years to figure out which engineer is from which department, is which zone and which area, and I should talk to when I have to get something done. So I was talking to him, interviewing him in terms of trying to create a capacity building program. What we are now codenaming or calling in Janagra as leadership development program for the counselors or empowering counselors. It is still in the early stages, and the topic came here, so I couldn't resist, and I'm discussing that here. But this is the big thing that we all need to do. It must have taken some time for Abhishek to become Abhishek that is now, right? It took something. And so it doesn't mean that the next person, Neha or somebody else who become counselor, need to go through all of the trials and tribulations to get to the stage that he is in now. So how can we capture the ground intelligence and wisdom of the existing counselors and understand, and not make it yet another boring, slide presentation about here is the role of a counselor and the 74th amendment, all of that, but bring it into real life with real life experiences of people. I always think of TN Session. The election commission sometimes acts very powerful, sometimes acts like lame duck, It actually by law, it is one of the most powerful institutions, independent institutions of democratic India. But the person who's sitting on the top makes a difference whether they exercise those powers or not. Right, so that is Abhishek may not have many powers, but he can get things done. If he cannot get it done in the council, he goes to the court. If he cannot get it done in the court, he will go to the jail board. He will file RTIs. Right, these are all the things that can be done, that creates a sense of empowerment, and creates engagement with citizens as well. Even if jail board is not under the municipal corporation, but Abhishek is able to get Jalbo to do certain things for the residents of the ward. Now you get respect. Now you can learn from that. And many councillors like Abhishek throughout the country has figured this out. We don't have many powers, but we cannot escape people, because unlike MLAs and MPs, guess what? You open the door, your residents are in front of you. Every morning, somebody is waiting for you. You cannot escape that. You cannot live in some other part of the city and then expect to win in that. So, at some point, you have to show up there. So, therefore, they're going to be questioned. And citizens are more and more organized now than ever before, thanks to a beautiful thing called WhatsApp. Right? While ward committees do not exist, WhatsApp committees exist. There are hundreds of WhatsApp committees in every city of India. Within the ward, there are multiple WhatsApp committees, and the engineers will be there, all of that. The problem with that, we all know, that's the digital divide, and not everybody has that access to that. So, therefore, it gets captured by those that know how to post that. Right. But this is the kind of thing that we need to understand, how these things can be done where there is no WhatsApp, and yet your issue is getting addressed. Where Abhishek, on day 1 or day 30, can get to the stage where he can question the authorities. Why do we have elected representatives in this country? It's a democratic republic that we have. That means people are supreme, and elected representatives are representing the voice of the people, and the bureaucratic system is supposed to be accountable to them. Now, if you can train or teach, or whatever word you want to use, you can build confidence in the councillors to hold the bureaucracy accountable on every single paisa of public money. Then you suddenly got something going on, right? You have something happening in every ward, every city. That's what we need to do. And for that, we need to start learning from successful counselors, experienced counselors, their hits, their misses, their failures, their successes, and then come up with the way of training, or engaging with the counselors. When I take my oath as a counselor in a municipal corporation or municipality, the next thing that's available to me is how to become a successful counselor so you can win your next election. Now, who can resist that, right? You want to be part of something like that, so you can not only do good job as a counselor, and connect with the citizenry, and make sure that you are getting ready for the next election as well. Because let's be clear about it. The purpose of politicians in any party, in any country, and it's the right way of doing it, is to get political power to do public good, and keep continuing to hold that power, and getting even more power. That's the nature of electoral democracy. And if you are
Okay.
able to align their requirement with the common public good, I think a lot more people will be interested in that. And that's what we are trying to focus on doing.
No, thanks, Srinivas. And maybe Milind, I think this is a good time to come to you, right? And there was a question. I think we can see it on the screen right now, right? How do we help create more Abhishek Dutts amongst our electoral representatives, right? And you've been doing that pioneering work with Praja over the last decade or so. Talk us through a bit about your program, the approach you've taken, and what you've really learned from those experiences.
So yeah, we've been doing a bit of council training and leadership development programs over the last 10 odd years, particularly in Mumbai and Delhi. And in fact, it came up due to the experience that we had in the field in the decade prior to that, like where people started coming to us. So we had this report which we released, I think, way back in 2010 or 11, where out of 227 councillors in Mumbai, 40 of them had not even asked a single question in the year that had went past. Imagine the role of an elected representative is to deliberate, and there were people in Mumbai Corporation supposed to be more exposed who have not even raising issues in the house. This was the water committee primarily, and that kind of triggered us saying that we need to go beyond this. We can't just have a report out there, and we need to try and create see how we can solve the problem for them. Like, and that's why we started approaching multiple agencies who supposedly have the mandate to provide this kind of trainings. They are state training institutes in the country, but largely they focus on rural elected representatives and the administration. They do not focus on the urban side of the story. Like, and that's where we stepped in, said that, okay, nothing doing, let's start a training program. We have a robust training program going in Mumbai, Delhi. We have trainings on skills, we have trainings on budget making, processes, stuff like that. We have training on leadership development. We take them for excursions where we could actually invest in them, show them best practices. And that has actually given us a lot of results. We actually had two prior, the current mayor and another mayor in the past of Mumbai, who actually were ranked on a report card as #1 in the prior years. They have been to training programs, and they have said in public forums that the training programs benefited them. But Praja can't do it on its own. Like, we could probably create a template. We can show how it can be done in a couple of places. But essentially, I think the agency which can do it at a scale is our political party. A political party really need to have a research and training wing, and they need to actually make sure that they do it in much more organized way. However, our political parties are not really investing into it. Probably the only political party which invests currently in training is the Swatantra Party, which was a liberal party in the 60s and 70s, which used to have a training wing of their own. I don't see why Congress or any other party in the country can't invest into creating a strong training wing for itself. They will not only create a cadre for themselves, for them as a political party, but actually will be able to solve the problem for which they have. That's a mission statement. Right? They are there for public good. And if they are there for public good, they need to build the capacity of their own people so that they can solve problems. The government can only play a nominal role. It's the political party themselves, they will have to take it up. There was a comment which I think Srinivas made a while back, when he said that why can't a council become an MLA or an MLA become an MP? I would rather say I'm looking forward for a day where a MLA or MP wants to be a councillor. Because if anybody ventures into politics, they actually venture into politics to solve a problem, to deliver public good, and that can be done effectively only when you work at a city level or at a rural level. However, our systems are made, our governments are made in a way that we are centralized, and and that's where the gap between the services exists. If you want to change it, we need to change the pyramid and make sure that the layer at the city becomes more broader, and the layer at the state and the center becomes more shorter. And make sure that most of our political leaders really want to become part of the corporations and gram sabhas, rather than be a part of a MLA, state assembly, or a central government. I'm not demeaning them. I know they are the institutions which are very important, but citizen, I think for me, it's my councillor, it's my corporation, which is more important.
Sure.
And that can only happen if we start relooking the way we have our government running.
Thanks, Milind. I know we have one more poll. Nandan, would you like to put that up? Yeah, clearly, the question is, what are the major challenges that you as a citizen facing in engaging with your local government? And I suppose it was very clear from our earlier discussion as well, is that, look, when there's more and more information out there in the public domain, people tend to start engaging a lot more with civic issues. 80% of respondents sort of feel that way, and I think that's sort of very much in line with what we've been thinking of. And Mr. Dutt, I understand you have to leave about 15 minutes prior, but before I let you go, one sort of question. If you have a wish list of 3 things that could help you become a more effective sort of ward councillor, elected representative, what would that wish list of 3 things look like?
Having more issues from a resident that I could answer to. Second would be having, you see, the thing is, after 5 years, if the residents, if your constituents want you to come back and work again. That is the best wish list you could get. I just want to tell you one thing. I just want to share my personal experience with Praja Foundation since they are there with us.
Sure.
It's a very interesting episode that happened in 2016. I saw the report card and I called up their office. I said, you've given me this ranking and I need to understand why this ranking is there. And, I had a very good discussion with one of their colleagues. And they came to me in my office and they said, this is the reason why you're not getting good points. And we had a discussion. They said, you don't attend the ward committees. Yes, I don't. They said, you don't go into the other committees where you're members. I said, yes, I don't. But I told them, I don't have to because our work is happening. He said, no, these are the committees where these issues have to be addressed, which are for the larger group, which is not only pertaining to your constituency, it is pertaining to the entire city because you're representing the city in that group. So, as municipal councillors or MLAs, we need to interact more with people with good backgrounds. It could be a good ex-CN who's worked in the maintenance department. It could be a person in the horticulture department. It could be someone like you sitting on the panel with us. We need to do more engagements so that we understand what are the weaknesses that we have that we need to work on. And that is when I realized the importance of ward committee, the importance of appointment committee. Earlier, I used to feel, there's no issue in my constituency with appointment committee. Why should I go there? But when we started going over there, we gave them better ideas for, doing better work. And that is when you work with the opposition, councillors in one room and you work as a team to achieve a goal. And that is what the true essence of politics is. When you work with the opposition to achieve a goal, which is for the benefit of the corporation. So I guess, we need to engage more with people and we need to do good research and implement it in our area. At times we do go wrong. We can't keep everyone happy. So my wish list would be that means everyone should be happy, but that will never happen. When people are upset with you, that means they trust you and you've let them down. So that is when we need to engage with them more, that where we've gone wrong and how we need to correct ourselves. And I think that is what we need to focus on.
Got it. Thanks, Mr. Dutt. And I think one aspect that we've not touched upon a bit more, and we've sort of spent a lot of time discussing the elected representative side of things, is going back to the citizen side, right? If there is a motivated, Srinivas, maybe I can come to you. If there's a motivated citizen that's actually interested in engaging with in public decision making, in governance, what are the mechanisms that are available to them? I mean, let's even talk about a bit more about the work that you've been doing with participatory budgeting, and more recently with the forum on city politics.
Tarif, I have an inauguration at 4:15. So if you can please allow me, can I leave because I have to be somewhere at 4:15. We have inaugurated. And Srinivas bhai, I'm extremely sorry. We have an inauguration in our constituency, so I have to be there before. We are inaugurating a Swatantrata Senani Park today because of 75th. And so my apologies.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
And let's connect soon. Whenever you're in town, we'll definitely catch up. Thank you, Milan, and thank you, Tariq bhai. It was wonderful being with all of you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Dutt, for your time.
And to your team also for the coordination. Thank you very much.
Great.
See you.
Tariq, are you able to see me?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you can hear me. Okay, great. I know somebody was asking me to refresh, so I was wondering. I was going to bring up the participation. See, when we say engagement, participation, we talk as if, it's some esoteric term, right? Participate, you must, how often did you participate? Regularly, rarely? These are little difficult questions to ask. Like I said, I may participate without knowing that I'm participating. So how do I answer that, right? So the one of the pioneering path-breaking, I would say, work that Janagra has been doing for many years, almost 20 years of its existence in some shape or form, is the participatory budgeting. It's something that is born in Brazil and other countries. Many of you are aware of it. But what Janagra is trying to do is to it's a campaign called My City, My Budget. As the name indicates, it's about trying to get the citizens of the city to give input and help create the budget for the city. Pune is probably one of the best examples for this, almost 10 years running, or maybe even more now, inspired by the Ward Works and Ward Vision program, which is what it was called before it is renamed as My City, My Budget, Janagraha, done back in 2002, 3, 4 with the founders of Janagraha themselves at that time leading those initiatives, drawing up ward level plans. What basically we do here is that we run a campaign in the budget season, and budget season is usually November, December, October, depending on the state. It might change. We try to literally go around the city, quite literally, because we want to get views and opinions from every section of the society, and not just that can click on a web page or an app or some other thing, which are also important but not sufficient in our opinion. So we take that, and then we actually process those inputs in a very I would say intense way. For example, this year's campaign was about yellow spots, and yellow spots is a coined term to indicate public urination spots. We ask citizens to tell us where the yellow spots are. Wherever you're walking around from work or home or shop or wherever, and then we process the yellow spots in a spatial kind of way and try to understand why this is happening. Is this happening because there is no public toilet, or the public toilet is so dirty that there is a yellow spot right next to the public toilet, which is the case in Bengaluru and I suspect many other cities. A lot of public urination happens right around the public toilet because people are afraid to venture into the toilet. They would rather do it outside, right? So now if we do that, that tells you that a particular toilet needs to be better maintained, or there is no toilet, because we can now analyze how far is the nearest toilet. So now we sit with the BBMP or the municipal council, the finance department, and the engineers and so on, and try to convert these citizen inputs into a meaningful way of projects as far as the next year's works is concerned. Now, this when a citizen reports a yellow spot or broken footpath or any other issue in the ward, and when she sees that input or my feedback has gone this loop and actually made it into the budget and came back, then that's when the confidence in this kind of programs starts to build, and they'll say, okay, so if I participate in this kind of thing, then there is a round trip that happens, and therefore I'm more interested in engaging. This is what we use terms like institutionalized, formalized, systematic, all the development sector words that we use. They don't work for citizens. What works for citizens is a problem, where's the solution? If I complain, will there be a fix? This is how they think about it. We think about it slightly different. It's fair, because this is what we think about all day. For them, this is just 10% of the time or 1% of the time. So the participatory budget program is one of the most useful, interesting mechanisms for bringing citizen engagement into the city, where there is a lot of good happens for everybody. One of the most underappreciated government public servants in India are the municipal engineers, municipal sanitation workers, health inspectors. They work literally 24/7. When there is rain, they're all out in the field in the dark fixing things. A lot of them getting into a lot of trouble. COVID time, they work like mad. Every city you can look at, think of the commissioners down to the ward level engineers, but they're never getting any credit for this hard work. Every time there's a pothole, boom, media also goes after them, public also goes after them. Everybody's favorite target is the municipality and municipal works. But if you create a system where the municipal engineers and the municipality corporation works on the basis of the input that citizens are coming, they will also feel that I'm working on something that so many people have asked for. 5,000 people have requested this, so therefore this is the right thing to work on, and those citizens also feel that, and the quotient of good comes out of that in our experience. I'm currently speaking to you from a small town called Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh, visiting on for personal reasons, and some friends took me to the municipal commissioner there, and very enterprising young IS officer. The moment I mentioned to him about participatory budgeting and what budgeting is, that I had to bring my budget from whatever enormous number of crores to 200 crores or whatever, because it's city budgets are let's see if we can use the unparliamentary, is a joke. Okay, this really don't reflect the real budget, but he's trying to do that, and he was thrilled that such a system can be created. He says this will help us more than anybody else, because we don't know how to. The way city budgets are made, Tariq, you'll be surprised to know, they take last year's budget, do a one big control C and another big control V, and then add 10% to all the whatever estimates done, annual budget done, and that's not actually what happens in the ground too. So if we start reforming the city budget itself, and Janagraha is also involved in city finance, which is a transparency to all of the financial accounts of the cities all over. Any of you can go to cityfinance.in right now and check these things that are happening and the grants and so on. So we think that bringing transparency to the city finances is one of the best ways of creating citizen engagement with all the things that I've just talked about. So that's something that we've noticed. And in other city, Vishakhapatnam, because they have a decentralized ward sachivalayams or ward secretariats as they call it, we got 80,000 inputs from citizens in 48 hours, because the people literally went door to door and asked, what do you want in this, what is the biggest issue in this ward. So now we were stunned to see that kind of response, and we knew we'll get big numbers. In Bengaluru, for example, we ran this campaign for say 11 days or 12 days with the vans and all of that. At the end of all that, we got 12,000 inputs, okay, which is quite decent number, I would think. But then when you have decentralized models like you get, so the point of it all is that if you put some sunlight into the city finances, a lot of good things will happen. People will start making sense of it and participating in it.
Got it. Thanks. And Milan, maybe I'll come to you for the penultimate question, right? In the urban governance index, you've sort of outlined 5 big ideas that need to be sort of implemented from a citizen engagement side. Could you give us a quick overview of what those 5 ideas are and that we need to implement?
Yeah, so the first thing is like we need to definitely empower our city elected representatives and legislative structure. Our cities are not run by the mayor, but really run by a bunch of administrators, which is fine. I mean, they can execute it, but the planning and all that needs to be, the power needs to be at the legislative body. Also, the way our council works and the committee systems work in our council, they're not thoroughly empowered. There's a point which Srinivas had made earlier in the discussion, which he said like we need to have our city government pass laws and legislations the way state or central government does. They should not be going. They should be able to pass their own bylaws and whatever you call them, corporation procedure rules, bylaws, or policies. And that can only happen if we allow our corporations and the councils to have a constitutional recognition for which they need to be recognized as a law-making body. That's the first part. So where we talk of empowering elected representatives and the legislative structure. The second part is we need to empower our city administration as well. Our city administration is. I mean, we need to provide them with the right kind of training. State capacity, the municipal capacity really has to be built up. We need to allow them to recruit people on their own, not be dependent on the state government or some other agency. They can use them for recruitment as a recruitment agency, but the decision should be with the city administration. So one part is about recruitment, the other part is about regular and continuous training and technological upgradation which needs to happen. Also, there are multiple agencies working in the city. What could be done is simply let these agencies be there if we see this value in that, but let the control of those agencies on what they do in the city go back to the city administration. The way Abhishek kind of said that MCD really owns the maximum land. That's the case almost in all the cities. That the corporation really own the land, and they can actually control the other agency if they have a strong a mayor system or a strong councillor, commissioner, an administration which can exert pressure and are independent to that extent. So the control has to definitely go back to the city and not remain with those agencies. Those agencies are implementing agencies. Let's look at it from that aspect. Like we can have a planning agency, which is probably a state agency, because we don't need each small city having a planning department, which can probably make sense. Like you don't always have that kind of capacity. But the planning agency should be hired by the city government and not by the the city government can actually should be allowed to hire any kind of planning agency. It could be a state planning agency from the own state, from other state, or probably a private player like larger corporation do, like Mumbai has done it in the past. Like That's the second part. The third is where we need to empower our citizens, and for that we need to make sure that we definitely need to have a directly elected mayor. We need to make sure our citizens ward committee and area sabhas that we have should be strengthened further. I think technology can play a very important role when we talk of strengthening ward committee and area sabhas. That's a lot of things can be captured in the backend through technology, and the feedback mechanism can be built upon it. Another part is open data. We don't know about how our government function, and that's the third part, which will actually empower citizens. Like if you're able to put in out information, the government puts out information on a regular basis, that will allow citizens to have access to know what the government is really trying to do for them, and then give feedback regularly, which can again be part of the area of a ward committee kind of mechanism. And we will probably go beyond it. We can't just be stuck on the formal areas of a WhatsApp mechanism. We need to have it 24/7 running, like a grievance redress mechanism. We could probably have a technology backed mechanism, which can be where citizen feedbacks and needs can be captured regularly and can be debated and discussed by the government and elected representatives, and the feedback could be given over there.
Sure.
The last thing which Srinath was just talking about, which was the fiscal empowerment part, that's the fourth thing that we need to really work on. Like, we need to make sure that the fiscal transfers happen properly through a formula-based manner. We need to make sure that the cities actually get power to levy their own taxes. GST was a great example of how we can break our cities. Like we took away all the power from cities to have their own revenue. Advertisement, octroi, everything else, wherever they could have their own revenue was taken away. And then the cities had to really beg for their own money from the state government and the central government. A simple thing could have been done was when we brought in GST, three layers could have been created, so two parts, which is right now the central GST, the state GST. We could have actually had a third one, which is a local self-government's GST, like, and that would have the point which if I see also made, having an escrow account, this kind of things should be put in an escrow account so that the money goes directly. Also, the city government should be allowed to change their own tax rates. Now, none of our like almost barring a couple of states, now our cities cannot levy their own taxes, not change their tax rates, even if they have power to, let's say, levy a property tax. Like,
Got it.
now that's really making sure that our cities are not independent agencies. So that's last part I think we need to
Got
do.
it.
So those are the four big things that we probably need to do.
Yeah.
Empower our elected representatives and legislative structure, empower administration, empower our citizens, and empower and have fiscal empowerment.
Got it. Got it. No, thanks so much, Milan, for that overview. And we are really coming up on time. And one last question for any closing comment. As you both look to the next 10 years of civic engagement and civic participation in India's cities, what gives you hope and what gives you despair? And maybe Srinivas, we can start with you.
So
You,
yeah.
Srinivas, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, sure. What gives me hope is what I started at the beginning, right? So there is that sense of purpose, and people have figured out that when they come together, they can solve problems. People have lived experience of that directly or indirectly by watching, whether it is steel flyover Beda or suburban train in Bengaluru or RA in Mumbai or any number of examples. And thanks to WhatsApp and social media and so on, now a success of a citizen movement is carried to other cities. And since there are already people that are interested in that, they're all learning the new methods of organizing and mobilizing. And because of that, the pressure building tactics that political parties use upon each other and so on are now learned also by the civil society and the citizen communities. And it's really a positive thing, because politics is always about that. It's about a creative conflict. It's about negotiation. It's about conflict resolution. And when so many citizens have an issue with a certain thing, it doesn't make it necessarily that their opinion has to be final, but their opinion has to count. And now people have ways of making that happen. Media as well. One of the things that I always say is that the only thing that politicians care about is numbers, right? They look at numbers of vote banks or voters or whatever it is, amount of money. The other pillar of our democracy that looks at numbers is media. when print media picks up issues, and print media picks up issues when they see numbers. If you are two of you and talking about urban planning and sustainable mobility and master plan, all that, they can't care less, and maybe they will give you a 2 by 2 in the fourth page or something. But when there are 100 people or 1,000 people standing on the street making some demands that are very clear and articulate, media will splash it first, front and center. When we did a campaign,
Think we've lost Srinivas because of bad connectivity. Maybe Milind, any final comments from you?
Yeah, I didn't know if further Cynic in me speaks about it that in the past of our countries really not moved when we were seeing issues. We only moved in crisis. The classic example is the 91 economic reforms that we did. Like we did, it was not that the ideas of what has to be done was not there. Like there were papers written out there even at that point of time, people talking about it. But the file had to be taken out only when we had to pawn our gold to the Swiss banks. Now that's something which is probably going to happen again in the urban space. That we have been talking about these ideas for a while. I think organizations like Janagra, Praja, many other initiatives have been talking about it. Political leaders have spoken about it. We have had 74 amendment, Smart City Mission, General Mission. A lot of these programs coming and going. But I think the critical mass is still not coming, has still not come aid, and that crisis still not come aid. We are now starting probably seeing some of it. Like one of the things which will probably be a catalyst for this is like our country is becoming fastly urbanized. We are going to have by the next delimitation more urban streets rather than rural streets. So the urban aspirations are going to go up. It's probably going to get more reflected in the policy making. And it's also the current generation, the new generation of political leaders who are coming in are more urban, and that's where I think that's a shift which is going to happen. Climate change and other issues which we are seeing across the cities, the problems of rains, floods, and all that stuff. It's also going to play a more catalyst kind of role. It's sad that this crisis had to come in, and we had to wake up when this crisis come and not be proactive about it. But uh, whenever there's like if we can make the move now and use probably various platforms to bring people together, I think that's where my hope lies. Like really, the youth programs that we run, we have seen that they have been very effective because I think they're more open for ideas and more open for changes and reforms, and they have aspiration to go up to like.
Got it.
So probably those 2-3 areas are where I think you'll see more traction.
Got it. And Srinivas, sorry, you dropped off for about 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, if you want to sort of close your closing comments.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and apologies for that. So I think one of the things that it speaks to the other part that I was speaking when I realized I was out. The focus has been, whether it's the development sector or the philanthropic organizations, has been on certain aspects, but very limited or less on the political class, and for different reasons, some of them very valid. But I think the time has come for us to start looking into the whole role of the counselor and how we can empower this counselor, how we can encourage. I dream to see a day when there is an institution that claims that come join us, we'll tell you how to become a counselor, like there is for IIT and so on and so forth. I want that to become like an aspirational thing for young people, and it is. The number of people that are joining public policy classes or courses, certificates, or joining political parties is dramatically raising. Whether you believe it or not, politics is now a legitimate path for many young people. Exponentially more number of people are looking at it than say 5-10 years ago. A lot of it has got to do with world events and gradual progression. But so this is a perfect time for us to strengthen that political system while we work on the much more structural reform that we all talked about endlessly. We also need to create the leadership that works on things without powers. Even if you are powerless, your council is so on and so forth, and municipal corporation, all these agencies within that system, how do you get the things done? And when we create a set of counselors throughout India, and we can take inspiration from our own gram panchayats, there are many young panchayat leaders that have been doing this across India. We need to create a similar kind of wave in urban governance with the counselor as a front and center. And I hope that if all of us put some focus on that, and I'm so glad you invited a counselor into this and many other sessions, that's the beginning of that kind of an approach, I would think. Thank
Great.
you.
No, thanks so much, Srinivas, Milind, and Mr. Dutt, who had to leave a bit early. I think this session, if anything, it has left all of us a bit more hopeful that civic participation can actually go out and improve governance, improve public service delivery, and that in the near future we will start to see a more inclusive city. Thank you to the audience members for joining. Thank you, Srinivas and Milind, for taking out time to take us through your insights. For all of you, please stick around for a couple of other sessions. We have empowering voices on the ground at 5 p.m. and then the Equal City plenary session at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.